Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The proposition that we've heard, of course, is that this House believes America is institutionally racist. I hope to convince you that this is not the case. Now, America should not have to defend itself against this charge. Its record regarding this matter is clear, including equal opportunity to fight, a historic fight, in fact, for equal opportunity, the amazing pace of progress in the nation where Black Americans, as we all know, have endured slavery, Jim Crow laws, and racial discrimination. The facts show that 50 years of epic civil rights battles for specific rights in Selma, Birmingham, and Montgomery, after monumental legislative victories, Brown versus Board of Education, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act 65 Voting Rights Act, and after 3 decades of changing social and political realities, a once oppressed people are no longer that. The rhetorical term institutional racism was injected into the lexicon during the late 1960s by the Black Power movement, a movement I was once a part of, yes.
Do you think that the Civil Rights Act in America took away along with it the judges in the Deep South who are members of the KKK?
Of course it did not. And it's clear that you can't, as Lyndon Johnson once said, now taken to task apparently by the new movie Selma, but as he indicated, you cannot legislate the heart of a man. That takes time in a country that in fact had slavery, had discrimination, had Jim Crow, as I indicated. Now, this term institutional racism, as far as I'm concerned, is far more damaging to the Black psyche than almost any other words I can think of. It encourages Black Americans to think of society as actively and reprehensibly racist and perpetuates bitterness and anger towards something they can't see and can't feel. Institutions. Which institutions? All American institutions? Government, law enforcement, corporations, the military, educational institutions, all these and more are viewed as irredeemably racist by this ideological viewpoint. Now, this despite the rush by America's government and private institutions to embrace things like diversity, sensitivity training, and even, from my particular political perspective, racial preference policies that now dominate the countryside in the United States. Has the American nation and its institutions succeeded in eradicating all racism? That's silly. Of course it has not, nor has any other industrialized, diverse Western society. But waging a utopian battle to erase all racism, real and imagined by the way, would be as futile as seeking a world free of germs. Now today, Black Americans are the masters of their own destinies. Something that Blacks who were alive during the 1930s and 1940s could have and would not have even imagined, just as they could not have imagined a twice elected Black president, Black attorney general, heads of America's political power, institutional power, if you will. Even before the election of Barack Obama, Black Americans have been CEOs of AOL, Time Warner, American Express, and Merrill Lynch, and have served as Secretaries of State, National Security Advisor, and now Attorney General and President of the country. Blacks have served in Congress, been police chiefs, mayors, governors, best-selling authors, MacArthur Fellows, Ivy League professors, billionaires, engineers, national talk show hosts, chess grandmasters, dot-com millionaires, theoretical physicists, and Hollywood film directors. Once a respected political tradition, movements for social change seem to that movement that a lot of people respect has seemingly fallen off the tracks. After the tragic events in Ferguson, Missouri, and Staten Island, New York, protesters were marching through the streets chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now." Dr. King, Thurgood March, and Fannie Lou Hamer would have been spinning in the grave, I'm sure that they were. 50 years ago, these great leaders and their allies, who included Jews and working-class white people from northern cities, marched for the rights guaranteed by America's Constitution and Bill of Rights. They demanded equality of opportunity, and they also demanded full rights. The reality of what they demanded was politically obvious and morally understandable. However, now today's protesters and their leaders insist that every Black person who dies following a confrontation with police is a victim of racism. Facts that often disprove this claim are ignored. Conspiracy theories, as we know, spread throughout the country. These protests, which insist that they are the manifestation of a new civil rights movement, ignore more than facts. It isn't so-called racist cops or individual racists who pose a threat to law-abiding black youth. According to the FBI, homicide is a leading cause of death among young black men who are 10 times as likely as their white counterparts to be murdered. Black Americans are only 13% of the population, but responsible for 50% of all murders in the United States, nearly all killed, by the way, by other young black youth. Now, but actual acts of racism become increasingly rare in American society. In lieu of this, new dangers have been, in fact, created. So now we are told there's something called implicit bias, which asserts that racial bias operates subconsciously, meaning that whites functioning daily as anti-racists can now be targeted as unconscious racists. Whites, no matter their individual paths in life, social or financial status, all enjoy something called white skin privilege, or so we are told. Last year, 24 graduate students at the University of California, Los Angeles marched into an education class and announced a protest against a hostile and unsafe climate for scholars of color. They had been victims, they announced, of something described as racial microaggression, or racism that is otherwise invisible to the naked eye. The school's administrators, of course, caved in to these demands. However, even at the nation's highest levels, institutional racism are perpetuated by its highest level officials. Eric Holder, the nation's Attorney General, traveled all across the nation to speak in front of black audiences to lobby against the state laws requiring voters to produce identification before they cast a ballot. According to Holder, voter ID laws specifically target black voters amount to a return to Jim Crow laws. Yet, showing identification is something Americans do almost every day of their lives. We show ID to board a plane, deposit check at a bank, check into a hotel, be allowed to entry into a government building, or update a passport. Nonetheless, we are told, of course, these are by the folks who identify as racial identity advocates claim this is a return to racism. Before the end of the 1970s, speaking about and protesting racism stemmed from sincere grievances. But for far too many, this has all drifted into being a recreational crutch. Folks fashioning themselves as eternally battling a white America that's viewed as irredeemably mired in institutional racism. This notion is the foundation of contemporary civil rights movement. More than just wrong, it is perhaps the primary barrier in America to advancing racial progress in the nation even further. Thank you for considering my work.